I am the 10th and youngest princess of Zheng, with 9 older brothers. A dragon has 9 sons, each unique. My eldest brother is ambitious, viewing the position of crown prince as his for the taking. He is a vicious madman. My second brother is as gentle as jade, yet his inner self is the complete opposite of his exterior, like a dark, venomous snake. The third prince holds a prestigious position, as his mother is a princess of the Western Wind Kingdom, since childhood. He has been showered with countless favors and privileges, living a life of unrestrained joy and freedom. The fourth prince lost his mother at an early age, and his father, the king, loves him most dearly. However, his heart yearns for the rivers and lakes of the martial world, desiring nothing more than to live the simple life of an ordinary person. The fifth prince is extravagantly wasteful, even having his chamber pot crafted from pure gold. Taking his worldly and disrespectful attitude to the extreme, the sixth prince is the youngest general, who has campaigned across the 4 directions with remarkable military achievements. He has no interest in power struggles, dedicating his heart solely to protecting the peace of rivers and lands. Seventh brother had very little presence. He was lost in music, and on weekdays he pretended to frequent brothels, but I heard that he was merely biding his time. Actually quite displeased with the eldest brother who held power, just waiting for him to fall from his high perch. Eighth brother loved his people like his own children. Everyone in Da Zheng knew his name, and he was considered a wise king in the eyes of the common folk. As for ninth brother, he's hard to describe. He and I had the best relationship, but he was also the dumbest. The other brothers called us Sleeping Dragon and Young Phoenix. And I even fought with him over who was the sleeping dragon. As for me, this princess, I don't even know if I have any reason to exist. Father must have used up all his skill points when creating me, leaving me with nothing but a smooth brain, and because I grabbed a pickaxe during my Zhuozhou ceremony, I didn't speak until I was 3 years old, and at 6 I could only climb trees to steal bird eggs. My father was even more disappointed in me. Is this girl really my own flesh and blood? My father looked at me, covered in mud, catching loaches in the lotus pond of the imperial garden. He stroked his rough beard, suspiciously asking my mother, as he couldn't believe his perfect genes could produce such a clumsy me. My mother was initially flustered, but then she understood where my path lay, and so she softly said, "In the Great Zheng, there is and only ever has been one princess who participated in politics, Her Highness the Empress's younger sister, the esteemed Princess Fu Ren. As for this concubine's daughter, she possesses only coarse and humble talents, unable to accomplish great deeds. I humbly beseech His Majesty to forgive this concubine's inadequacy." The Emperor father let out a long sigh and swept away with his sleeve. In the reserved and tranquil eyes of the Empress mother flashed a thread of maternal worry, as if in this moment, she had completely comprehended the significance of my existence. She told me this when I was 8 years old. Rather than vying for the throne, it's better to bury oneself in farming. Participating in party politics is undoubtedly a death wish. Although I don't understand, I believe my mother will never harm me. So, on my 15th birthday, my mother gifted me a fief, telling me that once the wheat had ripened 3 times, I could return to the capital and avoid the bloodshed here. At this moment, I sit in a carriage with my personal maid, Xiao Shi, heading towards the distant fief. My 9 brothers stood on the city wall, watching me leave, their expressions all dark and unreadable. I knew that the struggle within the palace had begun the day I departed. As soon as I arrived at my fiefdom, I was dumbfounded. What is the meaning of this thatched hut? Looking at the maid Xiao Shi, I noticed that her jaw had also dropped to the ground. Could it be that appearances are deceiving, and there's gold inside despite the ragged exterior? I swallowed hard and pointed to the pigsty nearby. "And what about this one?" Xiao Shi stammered and stuttered, racking her brains to answer. "Perhaps the Empress was worried that Your Highness would have no meat to eat here." I took a deep breath and pointed to a pile of tattered clothes on the ground. Judging by their appearance and style, they were clearly what peasant women would wear. Xiao Shi couldn't hold back anymore. With a face full of tears and apologies, she spoke. "I'm sorry, Your Highness, but both the Empress and I have deceived you. This isn't a fiefdom at all, it's just land. The Empress ordered me to farm here in Wangji Zhuang with you. I went mad in my 15th year, slumping to the ground. I felt the coarse fabric, wishing I could just bash my head against a pig and die. 3 days ago, I was a princess, pampered and precious. Now I've become a true countrywoman. It seems my father not only spent all his skill points on my 9 brothers but also left no luck for me. Little she saw my state and timidly spoke up. Princess, stop crying, you'll scare the chickens, and tomorrow we won't have any eggs to eat. That's right, I can't slaughter pigs, I can't butcher sheep, and I certainly can't farm. For these 3 years, the only thing I could eat was eggs, and if I startled my benefactors again, I would truly be at a dead end. But on my first day here, I survived on boiled eggs and well water. On the second day, fried eggs and well water. On the third day, scrambled eggs and well water. On the fourth day, poached eggs, no well water, because the bucket for drawing well water was crushed by me sitting on it. On the 7th day, I was squatting in the outhouse. The toilet paper in my hand was crumpled into a wrinkled ball by my forceful grip. I gritted my teeth and opened my mouth with great effort. Xiaoxi, we can't just eat eggs anymore. Otherwise you and I will be constipated for life. Heaven helps those who help themselves. We must make a change. Xiaoxi, do you believe in this princess? Xiaoxi stood outside covering her nose, giving me a pep talk. The one person I believe in most in this world is you, princess. There's nothing you can't accomplish if you set your mind to it. All right, I let out a loud shout, and the agony of constipation burst forth along with my wail. Finally, relief washed over me. Bent over at the waist, I emerged from the outhouse and grasped Xiaoxi's hand tightly. The first battle of Wanggeshuang has already begun. Follow this princess to war against the chicken coop. Slaughter them all, leaving not a single feather behind. Night, autumn wind, campfire, roasted chicken. This was the first time I had eaten meat since arriving in Wanggeshuang. Tears streamed down my cheeks, falling onto the fragrant roasted chicken leg in my hands. I looked at Xiaoxi, whose hair was covered in chicken feathers, her right cheek bruised and purple, her clothes torn by chicken claws, but a happy smile on her face as she happily devoured a chicken leg. I also smiled foolishly, sporting a black eye while taking a bite of the succulent, oily chicken leg. Although my upper garment had lost its sleeves, my legs were covered in chicken droppings, and I had lost one shoe, but at this moment, I only felt contentment. This sense of achievement was something I had never experienced in the palace. Although the chicken tasted good, eating it for a long time became monotonous and unremarkable. Indeed, humans always develop their skills in the midst of dissatisfaction. Xiaoxi, I want to eat braised pork. Do you know how to make it? I looked at Xiaoxi with eager anticipation. At this moment, I was facing the yellow earth with my back to the sky, and my skin had also been tanned into a healthy wheat color. Squatting on the ground, hair disheveled, I looked exactly like the village idiot at the crossroads, the village guardian. Xiaoxi was doing laundry, and when she heard my words, she nodded quickly, then showed a troubled expression. But, princess, the pig, do you dare to kill it? My eerie gaze shifted from the chicken coop to the pigsty. The once plump and chubby little animals had already transformed in my eyes into fragrant, glutinous, and delicious braised pork, fatty but not greasy, pork knuckles, and sweet and sour spare ribs that would fall off the bone with a single suck. I sneered lightly, slowly got up, walked into the kitchen, and took out a kitchen knife. The sharp gleam from the tip of the blade flashed across my eyes as I unleashed my full aura. The second battle of Wanggeshuang has begun. Xiaoxi, follow this princess into battle once more. Killing a pig was much more difficult than killing a chicken. Not only must they be tied down, their hearts carved out with a knife, but the process must also be a single, fatal blow. After all, we kill, but we don't torture. As for why I know this so clearly, I can only say it's experience. If you've ever been gored by a pig and couldn't get out of bed for 3 days, you'd know to tie it down. If you've ever been wounded by the knife you plunged into a pig, you'd know that stabbing the heart is the simplest way. People, they all come from hardship. My 86-year-old imperial grandmother often said that when she was alive, yes, being struck back by a pig is always better than dying in a power struggle. I limped over to the pigsty for the 18th time, clutching my chest. Today, only one of us will survive, I shouted at the pig with determination, ready to fight to the death. The second battle ended in a narrow victory for this princess. Though I dislocated my shoulder in the process, "Don't touch me, I'm injured, you're finished." After some more days passed, the prolonged period of slaughtering chickens and pigs had noticeably developed my biceps. I was no longer the frail young girl who couldn't even open a makeup box. At this moment, I was carrying a large slab of pork to the kitchen. Xiaoxi's gaze toward me shifted from shock to admiration and finally to complete reverence. "Princess, you are truly remarkable. You have the bearing of a great general." "Hihi," I chuckled as I tossed the pork in front of Xiaoxi, wiped my rough face with my hand, and drooled while watching her cook. Before long, the braised pork was ready to be served. The steaming meat gave off an intoxicating aroma, with soy sauce evenly coating the square chunks of meat. The caramelized sugar glaze made the skin of the meat shine with a lustrous gloss comparable to glazed porcelain, more dazzling than any gemstone I had ever seen. I cried. I thought I saw my deceased imperial grandmother. Only after my mouth was slick with oil and sticky with gravy did I let out a satisfied burp. "Xiaoxi, this is the best braised pork I've ever had. You're amazing. How come I never realized you cooked so well before?" Xiaoxi patted his round belly, sprawled out in his chair, completely devoid of the awe and timidity he once held for me. She narrowed her eyes and bluntly mocked. "I think, Your Highness, you've been spoiled by too many good days. Back then, even when I made crab roe lion's head meatballs, you'd complain about the meaty smell. Now, if I hadn't stopped you, you'd be gnawing on raw pork." As soon as the words left her mouth, the atmosphere between us turned icy and tense. Xiaoxi realized she had overstepped her bounds and was panicking, about to kowtow to me in apology, when I quickly stopped her. "You're right," I said, smiling and pinching her cheek. "Turn around and look, this isn't the palace. And you don't need to treat me like a princess." No sooner had I spoken than I let out an earth-shattering, soul-stirring burp. Xiaoxi was startled at first, then quickly burst into laughter. I, too, began to laugh for no reason, laughing until we were both rolling on the ground, laughing until she smeared mud on my face. The fields were silent, and the night sky was dotted with stars. We fell into a deep sleep on the haystack. I had a dream, in which Xiaoxi became my own sister. White dew is too early, cold dew is too late, autumn equinox is the right time to sow wheat. When I first arrived here, it was just past the beginning of autumn. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. It was now the time of the autumn equinox. I twisted my hair into the simplest snail bun, rolled up my sleeves, tied up my long skirt with a hemp rope, and wore the coarse cloth shoes I bought from Wangashuang Market. Holding a plowing tool, I excitedly said to Xiaoxi, "Are you ready?" My general Xiaoxi, dressed identically to me, nodded firmly. "I follow the princess into battle." We worked in perfect sync. I started from the north, and she returned from the south. With each back and forth, the wooden plow collided with the earth, making a pleasant shush sound. From sunrise to high noon, we worked until a perfectly cultivated field lay before us. "Princess, I feel so happy, so accomplished." Xiaoxi's face was smeared with mud, her skin darkened by the sun, and she spoke to me with sweat streaming down her face. As she smiled, her teeth appeared even whiter. "Isn't this better than playing political games in the palace? The land never lies. Every day's work we put into it brings forth a new transformation. If you ask me, the changing face of this land could truly be called a beauty with 1,000 faces. I no longer feel troubled or resentful. People are born as people. Identity is merely a label that troubles oneself. If I am a princess, I shall sit atop the high platform, watching the wind roll and clouds gather. If I am a peasant woman, I shall bow my head to sow seeds, watching the wheat ripen. Xiaoxi, stop calling me princess, call me Usher instead." I placed my hand on Xiaoxi's shoulder and watched her smile. Usher, Xiaoxi. The land was prepared. But the matter of sowing the seeds had us both scratching our heads. "How about we go buy some seeds from the farmers in Wangjizhuang?" Xiaoxi suggested while eating her pork knuckle. "That's actually a good idea. But everyone is sowing seeds right now, and they might not even have enough for themselves. Will they sell any to us?" I took a big sip of egg soup, my mouth full and muffled. Besides, after 15 years in the palace, I've forgotten how to communicate with people normally. Interpersonal, I might as well kill a chicken. "Aisha, I think you should step out of your comfort zone. How can you know the result if you don't try to communicate with others?" Xiaoxi put down her elbow, her face serious and determined. All right, I'll give it a try, it's just dealing with people. How much harder can it be than slaughtering a pig? Encouraged by her, I spoke with full confidence, gulping down the egg drop soup until it was all gone. Sell to you, what do you have? Chicken feathers, got a big head, dream on. Grandma, we don't have enough seeds. Scram, scram, where did this youngster come from? Didn't your parents teach you how to address people? I'm only 25, who are you calling auntie? Not for sale. Scram. Wanggeshuang truly lived up to its reputation for fierce folk. In just one afternoon, I heard hundreds of different insults, not only without repetition but also remarkably rhythmic. One old woman, in particular, gesticulated wildly as she cursed me, clapping her hands and pointing at me while dancing, like a Japanese performer. Xiaoxi, don't be discouraged, there's one last place. I patted Xiaoxi's shoulder and vigorously wiped my face, because the old woman who had just cursed me had too much spittle. I'm sorry. Ah sure, it's all my bad idea that made you listen to so many unpleasant things. Xiaoxi looked at me apologetically, her round, almond-shaped eyes brimming with tears. A sight that made me feel pity. What are you talking about? At the very least, it's enriched our vocabulary. In 3 years when we return to the palace, I bet Brother Nine still won't be able to out-argue me. Having said that, I hooked arms with Xiaoxi and walked to the last family's door. Sell you seeds, sure. A youth of noble bearing sat in the main hall on a grand chair, dressed in simple hemp clothing. His jet-black hair was tied in an uncomplicated ponytail. He idly fiddled with a shadow puppet in his hand. He saw us, casually glancing out of the corner of his eye, and spoke indifferently. Xiaoxi and I exchanged glances, unable to suppress the joy on our faces. Just as we were about to cheer, the young man interrupted us. However, I have one condition. I quickly agreed. Forget conditions, I could even get him a rocket. The young man slowly stood up, and only then did I realize he was tall and straight. His upright figure appearing extraordinary under the glow of moonlight. Once your wheat matures, you must give me half of the harvest. I took a deep breath, thinking it was some trivial matter, so I hurriedly agreed. No problem, no problem. The boy raised his eyebrows slightly, his dark brown eyes flickering with who knows what calculations, and continued, that's not all. Before the wheat ripens, you too must also provide me with 3 meals a day. Doesn't your family have plenty of livestock? Tomorrow, make me some dongpa pork. My heart jolted with surprise, but I quickly masked it with a pretense of joy and agreed to his terms. Seeing my agreement, the boy handed us a basket soaked in water, containing dried wheat seeds. If there had been doubt before, now it was clear. Then to hell with it, let's run. I snatched the basket and dragged Xiaoxi as we rushed out the door. Why are you running? We're not stealing. They agreed to give it to us anyway. It's just some wheat and meat. Ah sure, you're being too stingy. We didn't stop until we were back home. Xiaoxi bent over, panting heavily, and asked me in confusion. I gazed into the endless night, my eyes sharp with the poisonous discernment trained in the harem. How did he know our family has so many livestock? And besides, didn't you see his hands? The calluses on them are just like sixth brothers. Those are only gained from long-term weapon handling. My hands, through prolonged farming, had become increasingly rough, and now they were so worn by the sand particles in the fields that not a trace of their original delicacy remained. My waist ached as if a stone were hanging from it. I slowly straightened up, the scorching sun overhead, and wiped the sweat from my brow with my hand, my heart heavy with oppression, because compared to the soreness in my body, what worried me most was the young man from yesterday. I looked at Xiaoxi, who was working with her head down, and shouted, "Are you afraid?" Xiaoxi didn't lift her head, her hands never stopping. When soldiers come, generals will block them. When water comes, earth will stop it. If he has ill intentions toward you, I'll cut him down from my horse. Then send a message back to the capital by carrier pigeon. Don't forget, Xiaoxi, you still have 9 brothers. Listening to Xiaoxi's words, a smile finally appeared on my face. Yes, I still have 9 older brothers. 9 brothers with exceptional talent and noble bloodlines. Then I shall meet him. Let's see exactly what kind of divine figure he is. Having said that, I had Xiaoxi go to the pharmacy in Wangji village to fetch a prescription, and then I added it to the dongpa pork I was preparing for the young man at noon. Alas, such delicious meat, what a pity. I looked at the tender, juicy, colorful and fragrant Dongpa pork, constantly sighing with admiration, thinking of how it had been drugged. The farmer's angry feelings about his grain being wasted surfaced. Once I find out his identity, I'll make him pay me back with 100 bowls, no, 1,000 bowls of Dongpa pork. I tried to adjust my emotions, making myself appear more harmless. Then, carrying the Dongpa pork and accompanied by Xiao Shi, I arrived at the young man's residence. Oh, you actually came. I saw you run off with the seeds yesterday and thought you were some bandit from another mountain, and was just about to report you to the authorities. The young man sat at the courtyard entrance, a foxtail grass stalk dangling from his mouth, his phoenix eyes tilted at the corners, looking at me with a devil-may-care attitude. Here, your Dongpa pork. Can we just forget about yesterday's incident if you eat this? I handed the boy the bowl full of Dongpa pork, trying my best to make my voice sound normal, but my slightly trembling hand betrayed my true feelings. The boy looked at me, about to mock me, but then caught a whiff of the mouth-watering aroma of the meat. He ungracefully swallowed, snatched the Dongpa pork, initially hesitant and suspicious, but moments later, he couldn't keep up the pretense and devoured the large bowl of meat in a flash. This is really good. Even more fragrant than what I eat at home. Which of you two made this? The boy clutched his bowl, still unsatisfied, but halfway through his words, he felt dizzy, rolled his eyes back, foamed at the mouth, and collapsed unconscious to the ground. Before he closed his eyes, he only saw me and Xiao Shi standing with our hands on our hips, squinting as we let out the villainous laughter, seeing that he was completely unconscious. Xiao Shi and I quickly dragged him back to our house and tied him up tightly. After finishing all this, I brought a stool and sat down in front of the unconscious boy. To appear more composed and ruthless, I deliberately poured a cup of water from his family's kitchen stove and placed it beside me. A moment later, the young man slowly opened his eyes. When he saw that I had tied him up like a crab, he immediately began to struggle violently. I had anticipated his reaction, so I splashed water in his face and spoke coldly. Who are you? What is your purpose here? The young man's hair was completely soaked from the water splash. Where had he ever endured such humiliation? Before I could press him further, he broke down. I really believed your mother's nonsense and agreed to come here to take care of you. When has Lord Lin of the Lin family ever suffered such torment? Zheng Tiantian, you untie me right now, otherwise, when I return to the capital, I'll immediately report you to your father the king. Neither of us will be spared. I was stunned. The little Marquis of the Lin family, he even knows my name. Oh my God, could he really be Lin Di, the only son of the Lin family, renowned for his military achievements, wealthy beyond measure, and whom even my father has to show deference to? I looked at Xiao Shi, only to find that she also wore an expression of disbelief. I quickly pulled her aside. Do you know about this? Did Mother Concubine really send the young Marquis from the Lin family here? Xiao Shi's face showed a look of embarrassment and frustration as she spoke. Ah sure, I knew about this matter, but I never thought he would be the young Marquis from the Lin family. That's great, I'm completely done for. Taking a deep breath, I walked over to him with a sheepish grin. So it's young Marquis Lin. It's true that we didn't know each other until we fought. Just assume my brain's gone bad from farming. And please don't bother with a small fry like me. Lin Di remained unmoved, tilting his chin to signal for me to untie him. Zheng Tiantian. Lin Di roughly shook his still damp hair, speaking with a resentful tone. You're truly both stupid and arrogant now, even resorting to poisoning and kidnapping. I think you shouldn't even go back to the palace. Just claim territory in Wangershuang, declare yourself king, and become a bandit. As the atmosphere grew increasingly awkward, my eyes darted around. Don't you like the food Xiao Shi makes? Well then, how about this? From now on, not only will I bring you 3 meals a day, but also supper and afternoon tea. How does that sound? Lin Di looked at me, the taste of Dongpa pork surfacing on his palate. Though his heart wavered slightly, he still spoke stubbornly. This method could work, but, starting with the next meal, I want you to make it, to prevent any laziness. I will personally watch you prepare every meal from now on. Oh, God, I'll never call you Grandpa again. You don't see me as your granddaughter at all. Even so, I could only grit my teeth, smile, and nod. After all, The Lin family is not one that I, an unfavored illegitimate princess, can afford to offend. It's a deal, young Marquis Lin. You better keep your word, Zheng Tiantian. The spicy chicken was burnt, and Lin Di spat it out. Braised pork ribs, undercooked. Lin Di got diarrhea. Scrambled eggs, perfect in color, aroma, and taste. Lin Di had an allergic reaction. Enough, really, that's enough, Zheng Tiantian. What's enough? I've lived long enough. Lin Di lay on the couch in my home, already worn beyond recognition. He kept his eyes tightly shut as tears traced down his lofty nose bridge, and he softly spoke. Help me arrange some roses. I crouched beside him and asked apologetically, where should I put the roses? Lin Di took a deep breath. My memorial hall. I'm allergic to chrysanthemums. Looking at his frail figure, I felt deeply guilty. Over the past half-month, Lin Di had visibly wasted away at an alarming rate. He now looked like a worn-out doll. Don't be like this, Lin Di. If you're going to die, don't die in my house. Xiao Shi and I still have to live in this room for more than 2 years. The words slipped out, and I suddenly felt they were very inappropriate, but I didn't know how to smooth things over. So I could only get up and leave him with a flustered back. Zheng Tiantian, you're really just like when you were little, killing me without a trace. Lin Di murmured half a sentence to himself, then closed his eyes and said no more. Having escaped, I looked at Xiao Shi, who was clearing the ditch, and jogged over to her, rolling up my pant legs and bending down to work alongside her. Sure, you need to talk to young Master Lin. I think he's almost depressed, Xiao Shi said. Digging out clumps of mud with her hands, her voice filled with worry, I kept my head down, letting the mud splash onto my face, and spoke in a muffled voice. I don't know how to communicate, I only know how to clear ditches. Oh, you too, you've been like this since childhood. There's a good phrase for it. What's it called? Right. Love-hate relationship. I pricked up my ears, listening to Xiaoxi, and detected an unusual note in her voice. I looked at her warily. Since childhood. Are you saying I've known him since I was little? But I don't remember. Xiaoxi sighed, plopped down on the mud, and crooked her finger, motioning for me to come closer. I sat opposite her, listening quietly. When you were 6, you climbed a tree to get bird eggs, and one of those eggs hit the little Marquis on the head, instantly raising a big bump. He cried and ran home, and it was the Empress who smoothed things over for you. I was surprised and gestured for her to continue. When you were 9, you used a slingshot to shoot birds. Weren't you curious about how that stone vanished? Actually, that stone hit the little Marquis's arm, and he had a fracture that took 3 months to heal. That was also something the Empress helped you smooth over. I was completely dumbfounded and quickly asked if there was anything else. Xiaoxi sighed dramatically. At 12, you were chasing bees in the Imperial Garden. After you poked a beehive, you ran off quickly. But all the bees stung the innocent young Marquis who was passing by. For half a year, he didn't leave his house, and in the end, it was the Empress who helped you smooth things over. He really does have a tough life, doesn't he? I couldn't help but sigh with emotion. This was truly a man of iron will, dancing defiantly before the King of Hell himself. So, sure, please be kinder to him, Xiaoxi said earnestly, patting me with the air of an experienced elder. The young Marquis has had it really rough. He hasn't seen you in 3 years, and the second time you meet, you tie him up and then leave him bedridden from your... Honestly, I can't bear to watch any more. Hearing Xiaoxi's words, I leapt to my feet, my eyes blazing with determination. The Battle of Wanggeshuang has fully begun. This time, I will definitely keep Lin Di alive and well. With the wheat sowing complete, the 3 of us had been in Wanggeshuang for over 2 months. Not only had we planted wheat, but in our interactions with the people of Wanggeshuang, Xiaoxi and I also learned from them how to sow cold hardy radishes, leeks unaffected by low temperatures, and cabbages that thrive in cool climates, and Lin Di, under my increasingly skilled cooking, had come to life. I watched him working in the fields like a doting mother, a satisfied smile gracing my face. Lin Di, farming isn't bad at all, it's good for strengthening the body and bones, and makes you eat with a hearty appetite. Walking up to him, I placed both hands on the wooden plow and looked at him with a proud and coquettish expression. After these days of wind and sun exposure, Lin Di's skin had become as dark as mine, Shedding his former restlessness, he now looked more like a simple, honest farm boy. He beamed with a bright smile. Yes, but it would be even better if we could have some fish to eat. Fish? That's hard to say. There's a fish pond right nearby. Why don't you come with me to catch some? Not giving him a chance to refuse, I pulled him along as we rushed to a public pond in Wanggeshuang. Rolling up my pant legs, I was about to wade into the water. That's too dangerous. What if I drown? I'm not going. You go ahead. Lin Di shook his head repeatedly. Instinctively stepping back several paces, seeing his reaction, I didn't want to force the issue, so I silently picked up the harpoon from the ground and walked slowly through the pond. After a while, I raised the harpoon and excitedly waved at him. Look quickly, such a fat carp. How about I make grilled fish for you tonight? As soon as I finished speaking, I casually threw the fish on the ground and lowered my head to continue spearing more fish. Completely unaware that Lin Di's gaze toward me had become somewhat complex and, his face also slightly flushed, after catching 7 or 8 fat carp, I finally felt satisfied and came ashore. With one hand, I tossed the fish into the wooden bucket, and with the other, I naturally took Lin Di's hand. I promise you, I'll be more careful when I'm with you from now on. I'll protect you, and I won't let you get hurt again. Lin Di's face flushed a deep red, and he retorted stubbornly. Who needs your protection? Though his words were tough, I distinctly felt him squeeze my hand a little tighter. It was another night with a gentle autumn breeze, only this time, there were 3 people sitting by the campfire. Looking at Lin Di's satisfied face through the firelight, I couldn't help but smile. From this angle, he doesn't seem so ugly after all. Noticing my gaze, Lin Di awkwardly tossed his head. After a moment of hesitation, he walked over to me and tentatively asked, Zheng Tiantian, were you serious when you said you'd protect me in the future? Back at the fish pond, I smiled brightly and asked if he remembered what we had said a month ago. It's a deal, little Marquis Lin. Lin Di curved his lips into a smile, and a ripple of emotion flowed through his slightly upturned phoenix eyes. Actions speak louder than words. Zheng Tiantian, I said, as long as you remember, I will remember forever. Is this really the fiefdom of the 10th sister? I think this is clearly exile, forcing her to come here to farm. What nonsense are you spouting? This is clearly Empress Hui's far-sighted wisdom, allowing the 10th sister to stay away from disputes, unlike us, fighting until we're battered and bruised, and in the end gaining nothing anyway. All of you shut up. I have 9 sons, and all 9 of them lost to my sister, yet you still have the nerve to yap away here. If it weren't for me trading the dragon throne for your lives, your graves would already be over 3 feet high with weeds. It's been over half a year since I arrived at Wangji. After enduring the cold winter, the wheat has now turned lush and green. Cabbage, radishes, and leeks have also yielded abundant harvests. At this moment, I am cooking in the kitchen with Xiao Shi and Lin Di. The scallion and egg dish had just been taken off the stove when I heard the bustling noise outside, and by the sound of it, quite a crowd had gathered. Peering out the door, I discovered it was none other than my father the king, my mother the concubine, and my 9 older brothers whom I hadn't seen in half a year. At the end of the procession were also my father's 8 other concubines. I suspected I was dreaming, yet tears fell uncontrollably. I rushed into my mother's arms, and only when I smelled the familiar fragrance on her body did I realize
the princess doesn't have to be a princess, the prince doesn't have to be a prince, and the throne can be forsaken, but food we still need to eat. This was my first time sitting in the seat of honor, pointing to the incredibly lavish 18 dishes on the table, gesturing grandly to everyone. This was the first time our entire family ate at the same table, and that feeling was still a moment I recalled with happiness even now. Father was butchering a pig, mother and 8 concubines are doing the laundry, first brother is tilling the land, second brother is feeding the chickens, third brother is catching fish, fourth brother is harvesting vegetables, fifth brother is clearing the ditch, sixth brother is spreading manure, seventh brother and 8th brother are building a new house with Lin Di, ninth brother is seducing Xiao Shi. Seeing his lecherous grin, I rushed over and slapped him, sending him stumbling. Ninth brother rubbed his head and roared at me with bared teeth. Zheng Tian, have you lost your mind? Where did you get such strength? You're like a shrew. I shielded Xiao Shi behind me and pointed at him. Xiao Shi is my sister. If you dare to flirt with her, I'll castrate you and send you to auntie as a eunuch. But suddenly, Xiaoxi tugged at my sleeve, speaking with embarrassment. Don't be like that to him, actually, he's quite nice. What's going on? I looked at Xiaoxi, then at Brother Ju, my mouth agape in disbelief. Xiaoxi, when did you two get together? How come I didn't know about it? Xiaoxi smiled shyly and walked slowly to Ju Ji's side, then gently stroked his head as she softly replied, we've been together for 2 years now, actually. You shouldn't call me Xiaoxi anymore, you should call me sister-in-law Ju. I was stunned. Sure enough, before sisters fall in love, even the most handsome male companion in the capital seems ordinary to them. But once they're in love, their eyes are completely captivated. I ran out to tell everyone this news. Yes, they've been together for a long time. Didn't you know? Haven't you seen them holding hands every day to go empty the chamber pots? What's so rare about it? Food and sex are human nature. Hearing my brothers say this, I realized that I had been the only one kept in the dark. Sitting dejectedly at the door, I felt like a precious flower that had been trampled by pigs. My mother concubine noticed something was wrong with me. She sat down beside me. Xiaoxi has found her place too. What about you? How are things going with Lin Di? My mother's words made me blush, and I stood up, wanting to escape, but she grabbed my sleeve. Let's pick an auspicious time, and you and your 9th brother can hold the wedding banquet. I felt even more embarrassed and directly shook off my mother, running away, not noticing Lin Di's deep gaze from afar. Today is my birthday, but there's no one at home. My brothers and Lin Di are going to town to discuss a shop deal. The concubines have arranged to go to Wangashuang Market to stroll around, and Xiaoxi and 9th brother are off on a date somewhere. The newly renovated house now only has me in it, and I the newly adopted dog with a somewhat lonely feeling. The puppy's name is 81. Because of 9 times 9 is 81, I projected my feelings of resentment toward Brother 9 for taking away Xiaoxi onto the matter of naming the dog. The dining table, which had been lively for several months, now only has me sitting at it, and I can't even muster the interest to cook anymore, just as I thought. How can someone who has tasted the thrill of excitement ever get used to solitude? I quickly made a bowl of egg fried rice, and just as I was about to dig in, I noticed 81 suddenly bolt out. Startled, I quickly put down my chopsticks and rushed out, warning it to be careful with its dog life. The city inspectorate has been strict lately, and dogs without leashes will be put down. I walked along the rice fields, ran alongside the fish ponds, and even reached the courtyard where I first met Lin Di, but still found no trace of 81. Looking at the foxtail grass growing wildly by the gate, I was momentarily stunned. The scene of our first meeting gradually surfaced in my mind. Over this past year, Lin Di and I quarreled, played around, caught fish and slaughtered pigs together, and lay side by side on haystacks watching the stars. Numerous fragments surged into my mind like a flood. I suddenly remembered the matter of my mother concubine wanting me to marry him, and my heart paused for a moment. I did not know what love looked like. I don't know if that thing is sweet or bitter. All I know is, if I could spend my whole life with you, that would be pretty good. I was so lost in thought that I didn't even notice the crowd of people standing behind me. Zheng Tiantian, Lin Di's voice rang out from behind me, startling me, and I quickly turned my head. I saw him holding 81 in one arm and a ring woven from grass in the other. Amidst the cheers of the crowd, the whistles of 9th brother, and my mother's tear-filled eyes, he said, "This time, let me protect you." Okay, I remained silent. All I knew was to reach out my hand. Lin Di, it's a deal. The boy's broad palm, like an indestructible flame, touched my face with its warm center. Just as before, he said, "I always keep my word, Zhang Tiantian."